Howdy y'all, it's me, Detective Drizzleboy, and today we're going to be talking about how James Gunn can save DC Comics. So currently, Supergirl is about to come out and is projecting to come in a bit low. As I stated in my last video, I felt like it was a super big risk to have Superman be followed up by Supergirl because the risk that Supergirl could underperform. Again, Supergirl is a more niche character than Superman, and that there was a big risk for this movie to not perform on the same scale. The next coming in is Clayface, which I actually think will make a lot more money than Supergirl because Clayface is a very well-known character within the Batman series. You know, he's a Batman villain that is very well known with the general public, that I actually think that this will likely have a very similar effect to the Joker project. I think on a smaller scale, I don't think it will hit the same heights, but you know, horror is kind of the genre right now that people are really digging all of these horror projects coming out. They're a lot cheaper to make, so I think that this project will likely actually make up a lot more profit than what we're going to see out of Supergirl, because unfortunately, there is a sense that Supergirl is going to underperform. We don't know how much it's going to underperform, but we do know that the projections are coming in on a comparison scale to, you know, the Marvels and the Flash, two projects that were definitely considered failures in both studios' eyes. Out of the footage we've seen out of the next Superman project, I do think that it's going to perform similarly to the first one, where it's likely going to have a very big domestic run. Because it is a sequel, we don't know how much it's going to perform better than the first one. There is a chance that, you know, people ended up watching the first one on the auxiliary market, and the second one could be bigger if they make the stakes higher for that project. I know that an entry project can sometimes be a little bit shaky. I think we saw this with the first Man of Steel project, that the projects following that one actually ended up outperforming. And I want to be clear about the Lantern show. I know it sounded like I was a bit negative in my last video, but I actually think it looked really cool. I think that this project is going to be an exciting one. It looked like it had a lot more production value than the CW kind of shows. But my issue with it is just like, I think that when you're making this whole kind of TV and, you know, film tie-ins, I think it really muddies the water, because, you know, when Marvel did it, it kind of was a shit show that no one really watched any of those TV shows. I think the one that people watched was WandaVision and Loki, but again, those are characters that had a mainstay in the movies and therefore felt like they were more deserving of a TV series versus some of the other characters that got, you know, shows. You know, Green Lanterns have a very big role in the DC Comics universe, and my one concern was that because of it, how budgeting for TV shows works, that you really have to split the VFX, you know, budget between multiple episodes rather than having, you know, a big explosive kind of, you know, turnout with these characters that are designed to be, you know, space heroes, that they're often doing things in space that often require a lot more technical direction in VFX. With Warner for sale right now, there's so much in the air of whether or not James Gunn is still going to helm the DC universe. I think that something that James Gunn did right was the casting. I think he did a great job in casting a lot of these characters. I think that Superman was a perfect pick. I think Lois was a perfect pick. I liked Hot Girl. You know, I think they all kind of played a very good role within the characters that they were picked for. So I think that there is that sense that it's like they have the right cast, but maybe the creative team needs a bit of a shuffle. And I think that this is something that I've heard a lot of people say about James Gunn's work, that he needs a little bit of a censor or a filter or someone working with him alongside him to kind of, you know, kind of bounce those ideas, because I do think that this is a very common trope I've heard on the internet. And, you know, I don't know if it's 100% true, but I do think that, you know, invite Zack Snyder to come back, you know, David Ayer, people really trashed on the Suicide Squad for the final cut that ended up in the on the theaters, but really the visuals of that movie are so good. The soundtrack, iconic. Like, everything was going right for that movie except for the final cut. And I do think that David Ayer has a much better cut on his computer somewhere that we need to leak to the internet, because I do think that that movie was a good movie hidden behind, you know, terrible production issues. But to continue on the topic of how James Gunn DC Universe can be improved upon, I think that they are really missing out on certain opportunities. The general public love the Lego Batman movie. What y'all need to do is make a Lego Justice League movie. Because, I've also been playing some of these Lego Batman, Lego villain, DC villain kind of games, and it's like they all bops. I think that Lego really understands how to execute DC comics and really understands, the lore and the meta humor behind it, especially within that Batman Lego movie. So I would love to see a Batman Justice League movie. I think that would make so much money, and the Lego tie-ins, the video game specific for it, throw a bigger budget on that, because I know that some of these like Lego like video game projects, it's like, Lego is like this money printing factory. Like these projects are probably super easy for them to make because they already have all the built-in, tools and tech to keep using these pieces and stuff like that. That it's like, what, put a little bit bigger of a budget of it, make it launch on Switch 2, have the Justice League movie, Lego movie come out. I think that will make them a shit ton of money. We need Injustice 3. Now, I do have a couple ideas and I want to pitch them here. That online kind of like Mortal Kombat fighting game stuff is just not working for Injustice, unfortunately. That there are just better fighting games, I would say, that competitive players actually want to dive into, and those kind of games are really meta horror like people who want to play those games, it's like I play it for the story and then I drop the game. And that's why it's like it's really kind of hard to say how do you really fix the Injustice problem, because I preferred the Injustice mobile game. Like the Injustice mobile game was my shit back in the day. I didn't play the second one, Injustice 2 mobile game, but the first one, for the first like year or two it came out, I was like, damn, this game is so much fun. And so I do think that there is a sense of maybe take the Injustice franchise or even do a spin-off of the Injustice franchise with a different storyline and maybe tailor the gameplay to something other than that fighting game format, because I think that's partially the problem, is that it's like nobody really enjoys that kind of style. And there are people that do, and I like those games. I like the combat, it's very fun, but it's very one-dimensional, especially as somebody. It's like, unless you're getting into really understanding all the combos to play on the ladder, it's like I would never do that, because I just know that I'm not that kind of person, and the average DC Comics gamer is probably not going to do that either. They're also buying that game to play the story, and then they're going to drop it, and it's like maybe play their friends. I think it's more of a casual fighting game, is that no one's really like super fucking broken at the Injustice game. Like if you spent your whole life just trying to practice combos on the Injustice game, it's like you playing it wrong. You gotta really actually be a noob like everyone else, or it's not fun. And the last thing with the video games, the Batman Arkham series, like we really need those developers back, because I don't know what the fuck happened with that, that kind of studio where, leading into the Suicide Squad game. I am a Harley Quinn diehard. I would love to play a Harley Quinn game. This was not the Harley Quinn game. And I remember seeing Tara Strong really on Twitter, like defending her ass off, like, we worked super fucking hard on this. We gave you the Harley Quinn game, like the Suicide Squad. Like, why is everyone mad? It's just a video game. Like, and I completely get it. And that's the sad thing about being a creative and being on that other side, where it's just like you made something that you believe was really fucking great and the world just like tears it down. As a gamer, and I say this, please, like, Tara Strong, we love you. As a gamer, that game was not interesting or fun to me. And it's like, unfortunately, because they changed the format of how that series worked and operated compared to the almost like giant free roaming city that you could explore with Batman within the Batman series, compared to this new project that was almost an experimental first person shooter, but wasn't even PvP. It was like a PvE experience that really just felt like grinding over and over again until you got tired of grinding. And that's the unfortunate part about a game like that, where it's just like they could have had the best voice actors, the best visuals, everything else in the right place, but because of the gameplay loop, no one actually wants to play that game, and that game lost a shit ton of money because of that. And so that's why I think it's like really important to like separate the creatives, the artists, and the actual financial success of a project. Like especially with Supergirl rolling around, that it's like, let's not just completely hate campaign the actress. Like I think that we can be a little bit introspective. She said some things in the media that has like made fans upset. I think that what she said has really not like offended me, to the extent that I've seen other actresses and actors say things that I just like, you will hear it and it's like, I don't want to watch that or support that. I think a big example is like Rachel Zegler. I'm sorry, y'all cannot compare the Supergirl actress to Rachel Zegler. Like Rachel Zegler was absolutely shitting on the creatives that made the original Snow White, and the writing and all the lore behind that movie. It's like, great, you're making a new version of that project, but it's like, damn, she absolutely demolished anyone wanting to see that movie, anyone wanting to support that project. And I think that's the difference between her and Millie Alcock. That like Millie just kind of seems like she's just cheesing on people, like the bisexual one. Like, I saw such a funny thing about it where it's just like she was giving the right PR answer, but at the end she just said fuck it. And I just think it's a little bit funny. Like Millie, like the Supergirl doesn't have a queer storyline in this specific movie, and she's saying we never know, she might be bi, she's probably swings both ways. And it's just like, I think that I think some people will get offended by that. As a gay man, I think that you will find out in life a lot of people swing both ways. So that's not really like, if that's the interpretation, that's the interpretation. I don't really know if Supergirl's queer or bisexual or lesbian in any of the comics. But again, comic books are filled with homosexuals, bisexuals, all throughout comic book history. I think that it's a matter of keeping the plot on to the actual superhero stuff and less about the extra. Nobody wants to see the gay plot line. They want to see the gay superhero kicking ass. And that's the thing that I think is the main focus when it comes to stuff like that. That most people don't have a problem with a gay character. It's just what you do with that gay character and how much y'all want to throw it in their face. Because I think that straight people have a different tolerance of what they will tolerate with homosexual characters. And I'm not saying that you need to cater to any specific audience. If you are like an LGBT creative, like making your own film about an LGBT character, it's like you don't have to appeal to anyone but who you're trying to appeal to. And it's like, but you have all these characters within like a project like DC Comics. It's like, it is great to represent bisexual gay characters, but let's keep it to the plot of the beating bad guys up. Let's show the gay characters doing some epic shit on screen instead of making it about their love life. And I think that that's the thing about with me, that I rather keep it on to the plot and the action of the superhero genre, rather than the focus of like the coming out stories, or this character is gay. Like, I am a proud gay man, and you know what, I think I'm most proud of my songs and my albums and my work, where I'm just being a badass and I'm gay along the way, if that makes sense. I think that it normalizes homosexuality a lot when people see great written gay characters that don't have to take it to the extent of like having to show gay sexual content, or having to try to mass appeal to the gay audience, because unfortunately I think that there is a sense of that even the gay audience doesn't like that shit. And I think that is an important part to note, that this probably does play a small role into why Supergirl is, projecting lower and lower. We don't know the numbers yet, and that's why I'm saying it's like, I could be talking too early, and this, like, the Supergirl project actually does a lot better than the headlines initially anticipate. But I am basing my sources off of like factual headlines and projections, and everyone knows that studios kind of have a projection months before the movie comes out, and that's when you'll see these promotional kind of choices change. I saw a headline about, I believe Supergirl had like 100 million in media marketing worth or something like that. I can't remember the headline that just came out, and I believe what it was trying to imply was that because of the collaborations that they worked with different companies, with branding, that they were actually able to save money with marketing. That is how I interpreted that headline, because again, I think some people were interpreting it as, oh, Supergirl just made 100 million. It's like, I don't think that's actually liquid cash, y'all. Like, I actually think that it's just like they're like these marketing tie-ins help save them on resources to actually promote this movie. And I'm sure a lot of them did actually make up money, but when they talk about a $100 million media blah blah blah, I'm like, that's not a real number of profit, right? And I want to make that clear, because there is a lot coming out about this movie, and I think that it's important that even if this movie fails, the DC Comics has to keep moving forward, and it doesn't matter if it's with James Gunn or not. But I do advise DC Comics and Warner Brothers, with the upcoming sale of Warner Brothers coming up, I think that we should let James Gunn fulfill a little bit more of his plot line. I think that especially now that he's already shooting the next Superman project, I'm sure that one will perform well. But there was an announcement for The Authority, I believe the movie was called. I don't think we're going to see that one come out. I think it got canceled. I'm not quite sure. We just haven't really heard about it in the headlines for a while. So we will see if that one comes out. But I do think that after that Superman movie, if James Gunn really wants to, keep this engine moving in an upward angle, have that money go up, we want to see something bigger than the projects that we're seeing right now. And I think that we should probably jump straight to a Justice League Superman x Wonder Woman x Batman, because that is what people want to see. And some of those moments in the original Zack Snyder universe were really cool. It's just like the Zack Snyder universe, there was so many glaring problems with it. I think the fact that it's like the Batman never even got his own solo project was like absolutely crazy. I think that there was a lot of unfortunate kind of like too many cooks in the kitchen, where it's like they wasn't letting the creatives do what they wanted. Then you look at projects like The Flash, where it's like The Flash was outright poorly casted. No, like that interpretation of Flash is nothing like the Flash we've seen in any iterations. The Flash is cocky. He's a womanizer. Especially in his in the animated series, he's a little bit more modest in the Flash series. But it's counteracted by that he's like a super genius in that series, where it's just like he really has a more of like a field researcher scientist kind of focus than the cartoons, where it's like it balances itself out that he has that a little bit of bravado under him. And I think that was the problem with I will not speak his name, The Flash, is that it really just felt like it was very, very poorly cast. And his interpretation, he was a fucking pussy. Let's just be real. He was awful as the Flash. That's probably the worst Flash I've ever seen in my entire life. And I compare it to all the iterations of Flash. That's not my Flash. And even when he was in the Justice League project, I was like, what is wrong with this kid? And he had some mental issues going on there. He had some alleged crimes going on there. And so that's why it's like now we're just like, okay, we got the right cast members for a lot of these characters. And even Lobo, Supergirl, I think Supergirl's actress is like, she looks like Supergirl. I'm sure she can act well. She was on, I think, House of the Dragons. She's clearly has the acting chops. But again, in these scenarios, this might have just not been the right storyline of Supergirl that will hit the mainstream. There's a lot of different, storylines that you could tell with Supergirl, and maybe, just maybe, the creative team picked the one that didn't necessarily reach the mainstream audience compared to a different one. And that's why it's a very hard conversations to have things like this, and why I'm trying to be a little bit more optimistic towards this film, because I think that there is so much negativity coming out that it's like I do want to see it with my own two eyes before I'm here to judge the actual contents of the film. My last video was heavily talking about the marketing, the promotion, and the headlines coming about the projections of the movie. But honestly, it's like I want to see the film for myself before I make any judgments on whether or not this is a good or bad film. But I think that, trailers are indicative of whether or not people want to see it. How much hype is your trailer getting? And unfortunately, people aren't necessarily talking about Supergirl or want to see Supergirl in the same light they did with the anticipation of James Gunn's Superman. So I do believe there is still hope for James Gunn's universe. I just think that we do need to make a big pivot here and recognize where, niche characters are not going to cut it in the superhero genre like they used to, because of the fact that the superhero genre has declined. That, the brand damage that Marvel and DC Comics have done to themselves has been a lasting effect for both of them. So we honestly need to jump into that Justice League project with Wonder Woman x Batman x Superman, keeping the same cast members. We can keep Supergirl. It's just that, Supergirl might not be able to helm her own movie. It's like, if she's a main character in a Justice League movie, she's just as much a main character as she is in the Supergirl movie. And that's what people don't understand. It's like, of course DC Comics fans want to see Supergirl. Of course they want to see her in projects. It's just that this was like the project that will not be hitting the mainstream like, they want, because it's like, these are big budget films. They want these projects to be successful. So the plot line could be something like Superman and Wonder Woman were already working on a new Justice League society, and that maybe that's where Superman gets roped in, where it's like a threat is so big that, they finally reach out to Superman and get his help. I think that they could do a lot of cool stuff with that. I know that they're saying that there's a Teen Titans project in production. For the love of God, make Raven an adult who knows how to use her fucking powers. I'm tired of this bullshit. Oh, Raven faints after one blast. Like, no, bitch, Raven is a OP character. Raven can stand her own, and in the Injustice universe, she's part of the Justice League. Let's not forget, she's Justice League material. She literally has some of the most broken powers ever. So do not give me a Teen Titans movie where Raven is a fucking pussy. I will not accept it. So honestly, Teen Titans and a Justice League project coming out within the same year, or within, the like back-to-back year-to-year, would probably save DC Comics. And I say that, that I do think that fans would show up for those two projects. And it's like, those kind of projects could hit the 800 million mark that, Superman was unable to hit, that Supergirl and Clayface are not going to be able to hit due to the scale of those movies. So I think that, and that's the problem, is that when it comes to the art side and the money, you have to find a median balance between two. You have your artistic vision, you have the vision that your fans are hoping for and expecting, and then you have the vision that will make you the most money. And you got to find your way through all three of those, because somebody got to be happy with the output of that movie. And it's like, it can't just be the creatives, it can't just be the diehard fans, it has to be everybody. Because I went to this smoke shop with my husband, and my husband liked the Superman movie, but we was there and we was talking to, like, it's a huge smoke shop, and there was like so many people, and we was all talking about the Superman movie, and all the girls were saying, it's like, yeah, no, that's not my Superman. I really like the Henry Cavill one. And it's like, they gave their reason why, because it's like, he just kept getting beat up so much that they felt like he was kind of a pushover or kind of weak. And it's like, okay, that is a perceptional thing, where it's like, I didn't have to prompt this person to say that they didn't like the movie. They thought the movie was fine, but it's like, they had a preference for the Henry Cavill version. There are people who like this version of Superman, because I think the Henry Cavill one under Zack Snyder's was too far serious, where it's like, I think that he was the right actor for Superman, but I knew that, like, Man of Steel was a little bit too dark and grim for a Superman story, and Batman versus Superman was a hot mess movie, where it's just like, what, there is a lot of benefits to the new Superman that that the Zack Snyder Superman universe doesn't plague. And again, that has nothing to do with Henry Cavill. That Henry Cavill is an amazing actor. So that's, again, the thing with creatives is like, dang, you can say, hey, I liked the Zack Snyder universe, I liked Henry Cavill, but that was still, not the representation of Superman I wanted to see. And now we got a universe with a Superman that is a little bit more jolly and chip, more similar to the comics, and the kind of, loving kind of Superman and cheerful guy that he is. That it's like, yeah, I think we found the middle ground Superman, like writing wise, but it's like we need something to really bring this franchise up. And so I hope that the Teen Titans project and the Justice League project works out well, because then you got this crossover potential. You got Justice League X Teen Titans. They could both be in the same movie. And it's like, do you know how many times Teen Titans work with the Justice League? It's like, it's such a common trope within DC Comics. And it's like kind of crazy that Teen Titans haven't had a movie yet, considering how big that brand is. It's probably like one of the most popular brands for kids right now with Teen Titans Go. It's probably the only successful Cartoon Network show for the longest time, because it's like they was only making 2 shows and one of them was Teen Titans Go. So yeah, no, bring the Teen Titans. The kids will show up, the adults will show up, I'm sure the grandparents will show up. I mean, I don't fucking know. But anyways, and I am begging, can we please have Zatanna in the Teen Titans movie? And start the movie off with Zatanna like turning Raven away because she says it's the demon in her. Like, that's such an iconic part of Raven's plotline that it's like Zatanna said, "No, bitch, you Satan." And that's why it's like, and it could be a comeback thing where Zatanna, like by the end of the movie, realizes the flaw that she should have listened to Raven, and that things got worse because of that. That the Teen Titans were formed because of that instinctual decision that it's like, I cannot trust this devil possessed woman. So it's like, we need to have that in the plot. That should be one of the first scenes in the movie. That it's like, or a flashback, we need to see that happen, or as a Raven fan, I will be very upset. Zatanna says, "No, bitch, you Satan." And then it's like, oh no, oh my God, you only the daughter of Satan. You only the daughter of Satan. I see you have a pure heart now that you're saving the universe like a motherfucking boss. So that's honestly what I really like to see out of that Teen Titans movie. Zatanna needs to be there, or it's not going to be the Teen Titans movie. And the last thing for the Justice League movie, it's very important to pick enemies that are actually well known. And I think what we should do is have a Justice League versus like an evil villain, team. Like, there are so many times where it's like, Joker, Poison Ivy, Penguin all teamed up together. We got the Cheetah showed up for some reason. She's here. I think that's how we should do it, because it's like, I think that some of these villains work best in an ensemble. And I think to not make it too big of an ensemble, make it like an evil organization kind of thing. Maybe Lex Luthor is the one who forms it. Oh, here we go now. Lex Luthor forms the evil anti-Justice League because, he knows what Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman are getting up to. And he's like, I need to put an end to this. My presidency run coming up. We already got plot going. So yeah, no, I honestly think that this is the way to go with the franchise. There's a lot of, things going wrong in DC Comics right now, but there's also things that are going right that we have to admit. So I hope that the James Gunn's universe pans out how the fans want it, because I think that the big thing about DC Comics is there's so many fans of this series, from all different walks of life, that I want to see that Endgame hype come back. I want to see that hype come back, because I remember I'm not even the biggest Marvel fan, but I was like in awe with Endgame and that entire, leading up to that point where it's just like every little piece was well planned. And then even projects like within DC, like the Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman, I was looking forward to those movies way ahead of their release, looking at pictures, looking at set photos, and it's like, I really just don't do that anymore with any of these kind of projects. But it's like, back then, I just felt the aura, and it's like, that's why those movies perform so well, because it's like, everybody wanted to know what was happening. And I think that what we should have is Joker x Lex Luthor with a new Harley Quinn, because I think that, unfortunately, I think Margot Robbie had done her run, and I think Margot Robbie was the perfect Harley Quinn. And I said this in my last video, Margaret Robbie's like Birds of Prey was just a very unfortunate project that everyone who actually saw that film realized it wasn't a bad film per se, that it really was just the wrong storyline to tell. So with all respect to Margaret Robbie, I do think that we should see a new Harley Quinn to helm this role, but we need more Harley Quinn x Joker, because I think that people are really trying to act like it is wrong and evil to even interpret their relationship together, as if that isn't its own form of art. That, you know, Harley Quinn is a very troubled character, Joker is a villain as well, that, you know, both of them are murderers, like, you know, and that Joker is abusive to Harley Quinn. And I think that there are different levels of it, where it's like the animated series did it in a bit of a lighthearted way, but there were times that they showed how dark it got, and it was actually a very impactful thing for me, even as a kid, to recognize that it's like they was depicting domestic violence, something that you do see even as a kid between couples, that it's like, yeah, no, this is something that is like, this is inherently wrong. And even in those plot lines, they showed how wrong they were to treat Harley that way, because even Batman saw how hard how Joker treated Harley Quinn and how it was wrong, because she was a genius, she was a mastermind, for as a psychiatrist, as somebody who is actually quite highly intelligent, but she chose the wrong man, that she let a man take her down the path of villainy. And I think it's very important that we show Harley x Joker, and we don't necessarily have to show the full extent of abuse. Like, there are really dark comics, and again, Harley kills Joker in multiple iterations. Like, that's the cool thing about Elseworld stories, is that they get to tell all these different iterations of it. There was one where it's like the Joker had like dressed up all these skeletons like Harley Quinn, and like told her she wasn't the first, even though she was the first Harley Quinn, and that she was just a prop to him and all that. That it's like, you know, the sick mind of Joker, how far he would go to try to manipulate her. It's just like, that was its own art. You know, he is a villain character, she is a villain character, that I do want to see more Harley x Joker, and even in the lighthearted way, because I think that's something that people really enjoyed about her creation and her interpretation within her original debut in the Batman animated series, is that she did have a very complex character to her, that, you know, Harley x Joker was a very fun thing to see, that when they had their spotlights together, they were great together. And I think that we shouldn't try to tear down and act like it's impossible to show those two characters together now, because of, you know, mainstream media thinks it's like it's not acceptable anymore. They are villains, they're supposed to be depicted as, you know, the wrongdoers. So I think that we should see Joker x Harley in that Justice League movie. But I think that's all to wrap it up. I think I said everything I need to say. You know, we need that Lego Justice League to kind of, you know, bring in the kids, but also have all those Lego tie-ins. You know, the movies and the video games can all kind of come together in a different way, because I think that that's something where the video game side of DC Comics has really fallen off. But I hope that, you know, people hear this and understand that I really do care about DC Comics. I have been somebody who goes to DC Comics movies every single time they come out. I go see them in theaters. You know, I play all the video games. I've really enjoyed like everything about DC Comics. I just love to hear lore, because it's just like hundreds and thousands of artists got to, you know, interpret these characters and, you know, put them in a different light and be able to tell their stories and make new stories using these characters. It's almost like modern like Greek theater in a way. So I think that that's why I think it's very important that we understand that comic culture, you know, shouldn't die just because of a few bad, you know, projects that came out.